Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing, the podcast for and with manufacturing leaders. I'm Mike and this is Trevor. We want you to join us on our journey as we help you gain new insights, moments of clarity, and self-awareness.
Hey, if you're willing to step outside of your comfort zone and uncover new perspectives to make your next day better, grab your coffee and let's go. All right, welcome back to another episode of Mindfulness Manufacturing.
Good day, listeners. We're glad to have you on again. We got an exciting program today. We have a guest. Our guest is Terry Iverson, third generation president and CEO of Iverson and Company. I believe 89 years and still running, which is exceptional. And it's a CNC machine tool distribution business. And Terry is also the founding member of Champion Now. And basically that stands for Change How American Manufacturing is Perceived in Our Nation. And he also has a book called Find America's Greatest Champion that he'll talk about near the end of the podcast. So let's turn it over to Terry. And Terry, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell the listeners who you are, and we'll start the podcast.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate you and Trevor having me on today. I've been in the industry for 40 years, almost 40 complete almost, and we sell machine tools to manufacturing companies all around the country and in the Midwest. Mentoring young people has always been very important to me. So I was a travel soccer coach and a former soccer player as a young man. And I've always believed in mentoring young people is a critical component and something that we should be eager to do for our young people in this country.
Well, you think back, Terry, you said 40 years ago, and I think it was around 1980 when you got into the business, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so 1980, you think back to the first year you got into that business, and 40 years later, I'd be curious, and for our listeners, they'll be curious on what was happening then that still happens today. Something that you would see as, something that stuck around and still some positive momentum or positive practice within the manufacturing environment.
My career has been advising customers and manufacturing companies how to make their product better, faster. And you would think with the internet that at some point people would take the human element out of that process. But some 40 years later, and the internet came in around 96, the human interface between understanding and buying and selling components to make products in manufacturing companies, that's still consistently, fortunately for people like me in our industry, is consistent with 40 years ago. In fact, it sometimes can be even more so now because with the different young people and the different generations, sometimes their communication skills isn't quite the same as ours.
Yeah, sure. That holds true. And that's all part of the coaching, I guess you would say, providing to the younger generation on, what are some of the things around communication that would hold true and would be favorable today. That's well put. You think about the human side of it for sure. If you think connecting 40 years ago to where we are today, what are some of the things that maybe aren't exactly going the way they should be going?
Well, 40 years ago, first of all, there was, how can I say this the appropriate way? There was a little bit of an honor code 40 years ago. We all complained about not having enough skill and talent in our companies, but rarely did we take from our competitors, or rarely did we, for a nickel here, a nickel there, a dollar here, a dollar there, have an employee come from across the street from our competitor. Unfortunately, now that happens all too often. And the reason is that, back then, 40 years ago, people complained about, not having enough skilled workers. Well, now that rumble has become loud thunder, and customers and companies are just, screaming from the rooftops that we don't have enough people. We don't have enough skilled people. And it's getting worse as years go on.
I see that's where our worlds kind of collide here, Terry, where we both have that passion to say, hey, manufacturing can be perceived as a tough place to work in that darker, dingier area. And it's not like that. It certainly doesn't have to be like that. And one person at a time here. We didn't know each other, different paths that we're taking, but the same end goal. And where do you see manufacturing going? We talk about getting it ready so that parents will say to kids, hey, try out manufacturing. I've got a 21-year-old son that's looking to get into manufacturing now all of a sudden. And, just trying to understand where would that fit in and what are those paths? And we talk about gaps of generations and skill. So where do you see this going now, Terry? You've been studying this.
Well, as years have gone on, automation and computerization has increased every decade, every 3-4 years. And so that's a good thing. That's made manufacturing safer. It's made it more challenging and more dynamic. It's made it, far more capable. But as that increase in automation and computerization happens, well, then the skill set even goes higher than it was before. So we have an even bigger need to train people and to challenge people and give them the tools that they need to help us run our companies and help make product. That being said, manufacturing companies back in the 1980s really didn't, back then, they weren't very good marketeers of their own companies. They probably advertised and marketed their products really well, but not their careers. So, but over the last 40 years, what's happened is the environment has gotten safer and more exciting and more dynamic, but they've gone along and not marketed, the jobs and the careers that they have within their companies, and they've gotten better in terms of environment and challenges and excitement, but the owners have gone along at the same path of not marketing properly all they have to offer, and they have a lot to offer.
When you think about your passion, Terry, and obviously spending some time getting to know you and researching what you do and how it fits into our podcast and our community of followers, what do you see in terms of leadership? Like, what do you see? You're coach and mentor. You got some good programs about getting youth into the manufacturing world. What do you see within leadership, some of the challenges you come across, and what are the things we could do to help leaders today or provide insight to some of the people listening today around mindfulness, around some of the ways we would groom or train our people?
I've been very fortunate to be mentored and parented with some, very visionary and old school mom and dad, and then uncles as well that have been in the industry for a long, long time. Our family started back in the 1920s in manufacturing. But I was always taught that above all, integrity trumps everything. Everything starts with integrity. And then the subset of that is honesty. And I never, in the years I've run this company, which is a family business, I've never made a decision based on financial gain or financial loss. It's always been with principle of integrity, honesty, and fairness. That applies to my employees, that applies to my customers, it applies to my vendors, and it applies to my friends. So I think if that component, if you can run your business in such a way that you hold those virtues in hand, in your mind and in the forefront of your mind, then I think the leadership will be stellar. I think what has happened is over the years, there hasn't been as strong of a parental unit in our country as years have gone on. And there hasn't been as strong of a mentoring component for the young people of this country. And so I try to make a case that if we mentor and parent better, and that needs to be defined, that ultimately our leadership will rise, and in the forefront of all decisions will be these virtues that are extremely important.
Yeah, we find that, across North America, and I'm not sure outside of those zones, but definitely it's always that we're trying to find somebody to fill a role, attracting and retaining great staff. That is still one of the top 3 problems I see in manufacturing. So for these manufacturers that, Mike and I will run into, and it'll be the common thing of, we're just short on people. We're short on technical staff. and they're frustrated and they're just looking harder. They're what we like to call this trying harder, but not getting a different result. What do you recommend to, whether it's a family-owned manufacturing shop or what else can they do to help with that pipeline and take action?
Well, one thing that I've always felt is that I don't necessarily look to fill a position as much as I try to look for somebody that's a good person who has the aptitude to learn what I want them to do. And occasionally I've gone off path on that. And then, when it's all said and done, I'm like, why did I do that? So,
Yeah.
You need to look for people that are good to the core, that they're there for the right reasons, that they want a relationship. I mean, people want a job, but you know what? They want a relationship and they want something that's long-term. I think there's way too much bouncing around the industry, in manufacturing and in general. But I think the next generation, they do want to make a difference and they do want to make an impact. And if they're valued and if you express to them that, these virtues and integrity and honesty is at the forefront of everything you do within that corporation or small business, then I think that'll speak volumes. But more specifically, I think we have to market, we have to reach out in a different manner than what we've commonly done in the past. Manufacturing Day is a phenomenal event that both myself and others that I write about in my book, Relationships, that started about 6-7 years ago. We had a really fascinating meeting here at my office, about 10 feet from where I'm sitting, and from people from all around the country. And FMA, Fabricator and Manufacturers Association, was one of the founding of Manufacturing Day. But we, both myself and Jeremy Bout from Edge Factor, had promoted some sort of Manufacturing Day to show videos and films and also invite people in to the facilities. And as it turns to, right as it came out of our mouth, FMA said, wait a minute, we're voting on this at our board meeting next week or next month. And that was the start of Manufacturing Day. So that's the opportunity to bring families in, parents and students at all different ages, to really see what today's manufacturing truly is. And I think that's a big thing that people need to embrace.
I love that, Terry. That's exactly where we need to go and be able to show that, hey, manufacturing can be a fun place to work and it can provide good pay and you can be treated well. And that's where we really want to help create that environment and landscape of, hey, here's some skills that you can use. And hopefully we get something out of these podcasts where they can take a different action. So I like the one piece of advice there. You had 3 things, Terry, to young people entering the manufacturing space.
Yeah, the three things that Trevor, that I tell every young person, and I've mentored a lot of young people, and I've also had a lot of internships, and I've hired a lot of young people over my 40 years. And that is, you know what, show up early and stay late and just tell the truth. And they're very basic, simple guidelines. But if you show up early and you stay late, and I'm not talking an hour early or 2 hours late, I'm talking, half hour, 15 minutes early, half hour, 15 minutes later or more, then older people like myself that really want to pass on the tribal knowledge, they're going to invest in you because you're different. And in today's culture, people show up late and they're at 1 minute past or 30 seconds past the bell, they're out the door. And it's hard for older tenured people like myself, experienced people, to get excited about someone that's running out of the door and all they're interested in is a job and a paycheck, instead of learning a trade and learning a skill and building a career.
Is that's well put. The 3 things definitely our listeners could take away from for sure. You think about your business, 89 years, family-run business. Is it built off those 3 things?
Telling the truth for sure. That was always first and foremost. As the son of the boss, which that people call that, the son of the boss, which my dad was as well, and I was. You have a lot of things going against you. The silver spoon is the furthest thing that I ever wanted. So because I worked for my dad, I had to come in early and stay late. And I've done that all 40 years. And, but even still, if you're not the son of the boss, if you're not in the family business, you'll gain momentum and traction that you'll just never. In manufacturing, mentors are just dying for young people to show interest. And anyone that's a sponge and is demonstrating that, showing up early and staying late, they're gonna pay, tenfold, in stories and passing on knowledge.
So to make that work, we need the leaders to show up early and stay a little late too.
Well put. Well put.
That is some of the challenges, because as people get promoted and take higher positions, it just seems like it's okay because I'm more important and I can come a little bit later. And then we're trying to teach our next generation to show up on time, and that gets very confusing.
But Trevor, to that point, if you're an experienced individual, and whether you think you're important or not, that's a whole different story. But if you have a young person sitting in front of you or standing in front of you, it's awful hard to duck out while that person's standing there asking nicely and politely, could you help me? I really want to learn your business and I really want to do better. Boy, there's a small percentage of people that are going to walk out the door and leave that person standing there.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Terry. I mean, we've even noticed, whether it's launching this podcast or trying to do different things, when you're humble and vulnerable and have good intentions, there's so many good people out there that will help. I agree. It's hard to walk away.
We get quite a few of the leaders asking, how do you coach? And I mean, honesty is one thing, but how do you coach somebody to want to come in early? And, it's always different answers and strategies. But the first thing Trevor and I talk about is lead by example. Like, obviously, if you're coming in a bit early as a leader, prepping up for your start of your day or your shift, that's going to set the stage for the people who are working for you. So I think leading by example definitely is one, and then giving them purpose, giving them some sort of purpose to want to be at work, not just a job, like you said, some sort of career path. They can see some sort of vision for their career. Terry, let's talk about Champion Now. I'm real curious on Champion Now. Did a bit of research over the weekend. Really, really cool organization. Can you enlighten us on the details and the listeners what Champion Now is about?
Sure. Mike, Champion Now, I was on a board in Washington, the CTE, Careers in Technical Education Foundation Board, in about 2009. And I'm on the plane thinking, I really need to change, make a difference. And so I'm thinking on the plane on a napkin, not a cocktail napkin, but a napkin. I'm writing down CH and manufacturing M and perceptions P. And I'm like, champ. And then in our nation, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want to accomplish. So I wrote it down, and I didn't really think a lot about it. I try not to put too much emphasis on ideas and thoughts sometimes that I come up with. And I shared it with somebody, and they're like, that's awesome. That's the name of your organization. And so I tried so many times to push away from the table and not do it and not start it and not, get the ball rolling. And just friend and acquaintance and professional people that I dealt with, they just kept pushing me back up to the table. And so finally, in 2012, I founded it officially as a 501c3, which is a not-for-profit, and with the sole purpose and intention of promoting and changing perceptions of manufacturing careers. And then the book was a component after that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, obviously, you push away from the table. That's a pretty cool expression, but you got drawn back into it because you have a passion, obviously, for the organization. And I really like looking at some of the when we think about mindfulness, just some of the things that you promote around the youth and the coaching and mentoring and trying to help them understand what exists in manufacturing. So for our listeners, I think that really fits in. Like, obviously, they may not know about your Champion Now, and they can look it up. But I think some of the things you're doing really intersect with what we're trying to promote in terms of good coaching, good mentoring, good mindfulness practices. So it definitely lines up to what we're talking about here today.
The one thing that I'll say is when I mentor young people, I think, Trevor, you were asking, how do you get young people to show up early and even want to stay late? And the one thing I'll point out is one of the people that I interviewed in my book, a friend of mine, Frank Frangie from the Jaguars, he was a big advocate of find something you're passionate about and find something that really lights your fire as a skill set or an interest and as a career. And if you really enjoy something that much, you're going to go in early, you're going to stay late. And you know what you do? And when you do something that many hours, you get really good at it. And if you get really good at it, and it doesn't seem like you're working very hard because you just love it so much, you'll be paid really well.
Isn't that the truth?
And I would be an advocate for not jumping from one place to the other unless you have a boss or a leader that is not what they should be. Okay, but once you find a mentor or a boss or a leader, stick there and get really good at something that you love. And if you try to get pulled away, give that boss or give that owner the chance to keep you. Don't just assume that they're going to say, hey, have a nice day, good luck to the next job. Give them the benefit of trying to retain you and trying to put you up to that next level.
So another area where we intersect and we talked about is women in manufacturing. And one of the things there is that somebody used this example the other day that I heard that I really liked. You can say that, no, I support women in manufacturing, but you either take action to do something different about it, or you don't support it. And I see a lot more of people just kind of ignoring it. And really, when we talk about hundreds of thousands of jobs that need to be filled, and we're always hovering around those statistics between 25 to 30% being women manufacturing. And, Mike and I definitely are better leaders because of the women that we worked with. They made us better people, and we can see that needs to continue to take action. Where do you see that the best way for owners of manufacturing plants to help with that growth?
Well, Trevor, I think one of the things that owners of manufacturing companies need to realize is that there's an opportunity. The Me Too movement came through right around the time that I was writing the book. And we speak a little bit about that. And it's a good thing that the female gender has been empowered to step into different careers and different roles that maybe they haven't looked at in the past. And we as owners, male or female, need to really look at the female gender. We need to be advocates for more females to come into the fold, so to speak, into manufacturing. But the 26% that they say, they're usually including all sorts of areas of all manufacturing. At the end of the day, I don't think, over the 40 years that I've called on manufacturing companies, it's a very low percentage of women that are involved in manufacturing that I even get a chance, to meet and get, feedback and input from them on the manufacturing floor, especially. I've been very fortunate to meet some very dynamic and charismatic women owners of manufacturing companies. A lot of times the daughters step into the manufacturing family business. My wife works with me. My daughter was with us for probably six plus years.
Awesome.
And I think, there's a huge opportunity for manufacturers to really grow if they just look a little bit further than what they have done in the past.
Yeah, and definitely with the skill set that we're trying to help with of being more aware and more open, personally, I'm seeing more development with the female side of just being open to feedback and how we engage a team and just all those simple skills. And it's like we need change, right? It's time to shift now. It's time to make this, hey, this is an industry that, yeah, it's one of the biggest industries, but it's also a safe place, not just physically safe with the technology, but it's a safe place to come in and be honest, and you can have integrity and not have to worry about what you say to who, and you can just be transparent. And that's when great things happen.
Yeah, the other thing that I would tell your listeners is I really think with everything going on right now in the world, I think that there's a tremendous benefit and chance for people of color because I don't think there's enough people of color in our industry. So that's yet one more way of doing something different, inviting new employees from different color and different race. I think there's an opportunity for growth there as well.
Yeah, Terry, you mentioned, you said the word relationships a couple times throughout the podcast. Mm-hmm. From your standpoint, how do you see that going in terms of manufacturing? Do you see top leaders building relationships, or are we getting away from it more around the financial end or more around, good people, good relationships, good rapport, which in turn creates really good team? How do you see it in your experience? Is it more financial or more relationships or a balance?
Well, I always think that, relationships make the world go round just in general. And I think we get challenged at times because of technology and the young people, especially because they've been brought up on technology. The young people would rather text, their boss, their friend, their mom, their dad, than have a conversation. So there are challenges, but at the end of the day, I think to have a good team, it starts and ends with relationships. I mean, we have people that have worked here. My top 4 people have been here 40, 43, and 39 years. And I consider some of them are my cousins. Some of them might as well be my brothers. They're not related to me, but we've been, spent 4 decades together.
That's impressive. That is impressive for sure.
Well, Terry, I want to thank you for what you're doing for the manufacturing industry and your leadership and your passion to say that, hey, it's not a dark, dingy place. It's a great place. It's a place for everyone. We need people's help. This is everything we touch is manufactured, and we want to do it within our own countries. And we can do that by developing our people. So thank you for reaching out and sharing your knowledge with us. I have 2 important questions that we have to ask at the end. What was your first concert?
My first concert, I think, was either Bad Company or Boston. I forget which. And I should remember, I think it was Bad Company because it was with my girlfriend then, first date, I think. My wife now of 40 years. So I'm going to stick with that one.
Yeah, for sure. Great choice. Awesome. Good concert.
And the second one is, if you're on an island and you can only take one musical performer, whether that's a band or a person, but you can take their entire collection, what's that group that you would take?
Oh man, you should have given me a clue that you were going to ask this one. I think one of my favorites, for whatever reason, and I think he's since passed, was Dan Fogelberg. So obviously, I'm a product of the '70s. So
yeah,
awesome. Right on. Well, we're musical fans of all generations, and appreciate it all, and we appreciate your time today.
Yeah, Terry, thank you for your passion and inspiring our listeners and the community you're building within your Champion Now and what you do for business. Very much appreciated.
So if our listeners want to know a little bit more, Terry, where do they go?
Well, you can go to championnow.org. That's the Champion Now website. And there's all sorts of information there. Your podcast will definitely have a link there. And then, and there's also a link to the book if they want to, find out more about the book.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Terry. Take care.
I appreciate the time.
Hey guys, thanks for taking the time and joining us today. We had so much fun. Please remember to subscribe. It's free. Share it with colleagues. Look for our next episode in a couple weeks.
If you want to drive results, the first step is realizing how you show up.
That's the essence of mindfulness in manufacturing.